Hi, I'm Dustin. You can see web developer, Treehouse. Worked for nonprofits is a generous way of, I used to be a pastor for a church. You say nonprofits because it sounds like more, I don't know, it sounds better. It sounds like you have a more, a better background than you did. So that's kind of my story. I started, I graduated from high school in 2001, which is almost half my life ago, which is difficult to consider. And I was very involved in a local church. That's kind of what my whole world centered around in high school. So of course, coming out of high school, I was like, I'm gonna pursue this career path. I'm going to go to a local Bible college, and I'm going to get my degree in that, and that's going to be exactly what I focus on. My dad was a minister, so there was kind of a lot of internal pressure towards that career path, and that's what I did. I got an associate's degree in Christian ministry from like a vocational Bible school that was in the small town of Canby, Oregon, population of like, I don't know, 10,000 people maybe. So that was, I was doing that so I went through the Bible college, and then started working for the church, not as like a actual minister. I had things, other side jobs and stuff that I did. Got married in 2003 to a wonderful, incredible woman. And we just kind of, that was our lives, that was our trajectory. 2006, I was actually hired as, I became a licensed minister in the International Church of the Foursquare Gospel, which is quite a mouthful. And so I was on this path. We worked with elementary age kids is what we did. So I never ran like a whole church or anything, but we worked with kids, and we actually loved that. Kids are awesome. Kids are like so cool to be around. They're so insightful and intuitive, and they know how to just, if you could set up the environment right, they know how to just love and include and not be crappy to people, which seems to become our default as we get older. So we did that. So Rico, you talked about, Rico, you talked about your mind being terraformed, right? I feel like my mind kind of after, a couple of years of being into the ministry started to also be terraformed, but it was less towards the programming side. I was kind of a math nerd in high school. I had some like propensities towards that. I loved math. I used to put in like calculus formulas into my TI-85 in order to like make those programs easier. Okay, yeah. But I had kind of left all that behind. But as I kind of got further and just kind of started growing up, I felt like I started to be exposed to more mindsets that were outside of the very narrow kind of world that I had, spent most of my teenage years and my adult years in. I was just listening to podcasts of people that came from different, even still Christian, but different Christian traditions than what mine were. And I just started realizing like, oh, maybe what I think of as like what is right in the world is not quite what is right in the world. And so I felt like my mind was sort of being terraformed to like be, thinking outside of myself, thinking outside of my tradition, thinking outside of my race and my gender and my sexual identity, and just like, just thinking about like the other people out there. And so with that, I started to become kind of increasingly dissatisfied with the work that I was doing with the church, because while MOOF was fighting for like some of those social programs, there were literally like stations in the lobby of our church with people fighting for those policies that were trying to, limit people's rights, right? So that was happening, and I started to just get really miserable in that space. And this is not me trying to like rag on any sort of tradition or anything like that, but that's where I was. But this church world was all that I knew. Like it was everything. Like I had gone to college for this. I didn't even get a bachelor's degree because it was like, oh, you only need the associates that get you enough and then you're fine. So like I literally had no other skills. At least that's what it felt like. So I felt trapped. And so not only feeling dissatisfied with my work, but also feeling like I can't get out of this. By this time, this is probably, 2010, 2011. Lurs and I, we had, I should know when my kids were born. We had 3. Yes, Evelyn was born in 2010. So we had 3 kids at this point. Like this is, if I don't do this, like we don't eat, right? Like this is, Larissa is a teacher, she worked too, but there was definitely like, what are we going to do with our lives? And just bitterness and stuff. Anyway, so I got fired in 2012. And it was the best thing that could have happened because I was too afraid to make the jump myself. I was scared, and so they finally decided like, hey, you oppose too much of the things that we think are important, and you're starting to be vocal about it, so we're going to need you to leave. So I, luckily in my dissatisfaction, there was the rise of these code schools, and I started going like, oh, programming. These are things that people do. I'd like made like a couple of like HTML websites, like use tables for the layout HTML websites. Okay, so so I knew enough to know like, oh, this stuff's really interesting, and it reminded me of like what some of the things I like to do in high school with the calculator and stuff. So I ended up just deciding this is what I need to do. We need to jump. I got a retail job. I was working for Bob's Red Mill down in Milwaukee, Oregon. Woo! Shout out to Bob. And we were slowly seeing like our savings like deplete to nothing. And so Larissa and I talked, and we were like, she was amazing. She was the one who really encouraged me. She was like, well, we can slowly lose all our savings and then be stuck, or we can lose a lot of it and then, maybe it'll turn out good. And it did. So, okay, I'm sorry. I'm taking too long. I didn't mean to spend so much time on the past story. So long story short, went through code school. It was awesome. Went through Epicodus. Michael Kaiser. Yeah, oh, well, teacher is a relative. Thank you. So Michael asked me, he's like, hey, you seem to like know how to like work with people and stuff. Maybe you want to like come help me expand this thing and like be like an instructor so I can work on helping people get jobs and stuff. So that's what I did. A lot of that job was like sitting in a room, right, and like talking to people that were at similar places in their lives, where they were like, I don't know, I just kind of threw all my eggs into this basket and I hope it works out. And just so it kind of went with what I had been doing in my previous life, and it was great. It was this great combination. I got to build some apps while I was there too. And now I'm at Treehouse. I've been there for about 3 years. Still kind of in that area of helping, people to change their lives, and like in a tangible way, not in the way that I used to think I was helping people change their lives. So when I was thinking about this, telling my story, the one big point that I wanted to kind of help, or I wanted people to walk away with was, I feel like as much as I wish I would have gotten into this field earlier, which I wish I would have realized how dissatisfied I was earlier on, I'm grateful for what I learned during that time. I'm grateful for what I discovered about myself and the skills I did develop in being able to talk with people and being able to listen. And I feel like that has been a big boon for me in this industry. Like, I'm an okay programmer, but I feel like what I really bring to teams is a ability to listen and really kind of dig into the issues. In fact, some of what like I was doing in my later times in my pastoral work was a lot of like questioning and like, well, why are we doing it like this? And is this really important? And where that wasn't well received. In my current role, like it still weirds me out, actually. Like, we'll have like a meeting and I'll be like, well, I don't know, and I think that, what about this? And, asking questions, and people will be like, thank you, those are some really good questions. Thank you for your insight. And I'm like, okay, I'm not in trouble. You're not going to fire me. So for any of you, like, goes for like any of you at any level, but especially for my junior friends in the room, you bring very, very valuable very, very valuable experience to whatever teams that you end up joining. Like, you are more than your like ability to write code, and in fact, like those extra things that you bring are like the X factor. Like, that's like really what matters. Not every company realizes that, but the ones that do are succeeding because they are finding, and like I think about New Relic, I think at places like Treehouse and stuff, like they're finding that building products for people is what matters. And so, anyway, I just wanted to do a little bit of an encouragement. Thanks for letting me ramble. I appreciate it.